My life story began in my earliest memory was when I was about 5. Even as young as that, I realised there was something different between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. And it was sad that that difference became a real barrier between people. And even when I was growing up into primary school, I saw there was a marked difference then, because lots of times Aboriginal children were not encouraged to gain an education. Even when we used to go to the picture theatres, there was a rope put across the front stalls that only Aboriginal people could sit in, or they couldn't come back behind that rope, rather. And then, other places there was blatant racism because they wouldn't serve Aboriginal people in a lot of places. It was strange. There were strange laws. We never accepted them. We were happy with the segregation laws because it kept us together as family. We started seeing houses and things on the shores, campfires. You saw them. You came to an island that was what was Terra Nullius. It was a vacant island, it's called now Possession Island. And so he said that we got to the island, we raised the colours, and we immediately claimed the island and all land south of it as Terra Nullius, which means empty and available. We claimed that, we called it New Wales. Now that's all he's written in his logbook. So that's where the problem began. Many of us are working on the fact that we have to go back to that point. The truth is we must go back and tell the truth, and then we must together work out a solution to that illegal entry. And that can be so easily done. There's no reason why we can't do that, other than the reasoning that government has and saying, well, we've got it now, we're going to keep it no matter what happens. They determined then with the Darwin theory that Aboriginal people weren't fully human. They were the missing link between the Anglo-European and the ape. And so they took their bones everywhere in Australia. Not in Australia, in the world. And so with that, Aboriginal people, it wasn't an animal that they were killing out when they were moving off the land. And there were massacres all around Australia, massacres that no one will ever know because it was done in silence. And so the culture of Aboriginal people is dying a natural death by the dominant society. The men would saddle up their muskets and they'd go to each other's allotment of land and they would shoot the bungs. They would shoot Aboriginal people to clear them off the land. They called them vermin at that time. And that was a total misunderstanding that people had. I'm not saying that everyone was like that, because with them came missionaries and people that had a heart to make other changes in different ways. And so that the law that came from England was to clear the land at any cost. And so everywhere you go, you'll find these different stories of massacres. And so there's things like that took place, but we weren't looking at that to create a guilt complex. We were looking at how do we settle this now for the future. We need to strive for recognition, recognising that there was an illegal entry and things that happened that should not have happened. Recognise that, and we need to refute that. All together, we need to say that's not for us. We'll acknowledge that took place back there in the Dark Ages, but from this point onwards, we want to build a future that is inclusive of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. There was a man that not long ago did a search in Australia with Aboriginal people to tell them that they had ways, there was help for their mental illness. And when he came back, he came to Eden, and I asked him one question. I said, when you travelled around Australia, what did you find was the most outstanding thing that you found? And he said, without hesitation, it was that there's young Aboriginal people that don't believe they belong to this country. And that's where the most suicides are. And so there's things there like that are behind, they don't get the media, but they're things that really need to be brought out and truthfully dealt with and settled so that everyone can feel a part of this country. The Aboriginal culture was a renewable resource culture. Anglo-European was a non-renewable resource culture. Aboriginal people had to look after the environment because that was actually the supermarket. But for the European, all that he saw when he came into this country was massive land that could be cleared and made into farms. It's recognisable now that there are so many things dying out because of the differences in the lifestyle that came into this country. The land is not a commodity to be bought back and forward, but it was land to be respected and cared for. The fact is that as human beings, we need to see each other as equal and do things that's better for our children's children. We are extended family, and that's the way Aboriginal culture always will be. And we need to be an extended family in this country, regardless of what the colour of your skin. We need to be caring and sharing what we have in this country with each other and for the benefits of others too.